Hello. Yes, Jill. I see you. How's everyone doing? Make me a mod. Done? Yeah. Yeah. I know TikTok is back. I just wanted to go live here. What looks different? You can't see the chat? Well, I mean, I gave you like all the best stuff. Like, I gave you the. Yeah, I've, I went and looked at TikTok and posted, and for me anyway, everything's working. I didn't try to go live there, but not the same info on the top of the page. Are you talking about on TikTok? I didn't notice a difference, but my attention span isn't that great, to be honest with you. I want all the best stuff. That's for Jill. All the best stuff is for Jill. She's my mod. Sorry. Thank you, Anisha. Or Anicia. Thoughts on the latest Trump crypto scam? Honestly, I haven't read that much about it. I probably know less about it than most people, so I shouldn't really speak about it. I just know there was a coin that went way up in value. That's about all I know about it. You know, I don't know that much about it. And I don't like to talk about things I don't know about. So, yeah, that's probably don't hear that very often, but yeah. I know I'm a little different. I'm weird that way. But do you think Trump will sign an executive order to allow more drilling? He probably will, but it won't result in any more drilling because basically everywhere that's been, banned, there's no drilling occurring anyway. You know what I mean? Like there hasn't been any drilling shut down in any areas where we do any drilling. That's the whole scam behind all of this stuff. And people get really angry when I tell them, when Joe Biden bans new leases in some geographic area, I'm like, there's no drilling there. Like it's all performative. There's no meat. There's no substance to it. Just like the federal offshore ban, East Coast, West Coast, eastern part of Gulf of Mexico, all places where there's no drilling occurring and hasn't been for over 40 years. All places, on the East Coast, they've had over 20 something lease sales and not a single taker over the last however many years. Um, it's all a show. It's a freaking movie. Like so Donald Trump can sign all the executive orders he wants. It's not going to mean anything. It's going to be completely meaningless. It's going to be him signing those executive orders is going to be just as performative as Donald Trump or as Joe Biden doing what he did. It's a show. It's politics. At the end of it means nothing. It literally means nothing. Do I think he'll go with the tariffs? He's still saying he is going well to place the tariffs on Canada. He's still saying that. Now keep in mind a couple of things to keep in mind. I think there's a possibility that he excludes oil and gas. But if he doesn't, Canadian oil is so much cheaper. Western Canadian Select is so much cheaper than other oil we would import that even with the tariff, it will only bring it up to the price of, say, Saudi heavy oil, right? As a matter of fact, it won't even be with the tariff, won't be as expensive as Saudi heavy, which is what we would most likely replace that Canadian oil with. So it's if he does, it's not going to have an impact on imports because for one, a lot of the oil companies in Canada own large interests in the refineries that they send that oil to in the United States. So they're not going to stop selling their own oil to themselves through other business lines, right? The only thing it will do is increase gas prices. That's the only thing it'll do. It won't slow down Canadian imports of oil one bit because the people that are sending the oil from Canada into the United States are, for the most part, essentially sending it to themselves. It's it's sent to refiners that they own a big piece of. They don't own the whole thing, but they own a big piece of those refineries that receive those Canadian oil imports. So there's a lot of nuance to it. But at current prices, a 25% tariff would put Canadian oil or Western Canadian Select at about $80 a barrel. Saudi heavy is about $81, $82 a barrel. So it's not going to change anything other than the price of gas, really. It's not. And Canada will impose their retaliatory tariffs. So if he does that, I firmly believe gas prices will go up 40 to 50 cents a gallon on a national average. And then we'll have to see what impacts the retaliatory tariffs have on us as well. So I, I don't know if he will or not. I don't agree with it if he does because I think it's silly, but is Canadian oil cheaper due to the Canadian dollar, to US dollar value, or the demand? Canadian oil is actually cheaper because it's largely trapped in a captive market. So, you know, they just recently opened the Trans Mountain Pipeline, but so they could send, oil, to Asia. But prior to that, all of Canadian oil was basically going into the United States, which means they had a limited pool of buyers that they could sell to. Think of it like an auction. If there's one buyer at an auction, then that buyer is going to get that item really cheap. If there's 100 buyers, then the price can go through the roof. And when you don't have access to the global market, which Canada still largely doesn't, then that depresses the price of your goods because you don't have access to all the buyers. So with the Trans-Canada Mountain or Trans Mountain Pipeline opening, that does get a significant amount of Canadian oil, rerouted to the global market, but they need a little bit more of it on the global market for it to start having an impact on pricing. And the Keystone XL and the Trans Mountain Pipeline both were built or wanted to be built by Canada to increase the price of their oil. It wasn't about helping us with gas prices or helping us with anything. They wanted to use us to get their oil to the global market to increase the price of it. That's why Canada took over the Trans Mountain project after it busted and it failed. They completely took it over. I can't remember how many billions of dollars they spent on that thing to get it open so it would increase the price of Canadian oil. It has nothing to do with the quality of it, has nothing to do with any of that. It's all about marketability of it and how many markets can you serve. And the more markets you can serve, the better price you'll get for your product. And it's proven by the fact that there's a lot of oil around the world that is very similar to Western Canadian Select that trades at $80 a barrel because it's available to the world. And so that's why Canadian oil is cheaper, because it's trapped in a limited market. Well, it's a two-part process. It's upgraded before it's sent to the United States. It's upgraded. So they do upgrade, right? And upgrading is a stage of refining, but it's not full-on refining where you get all of your products. So they are upgrading it and sending it. But you got to also keep in mind, they're selling it to themselves. You know what I mean? Like they're literally selling it to themselves. So, but Canada, the government in Canada, they definitely want a higher price, and so do the oil companies for the customers they service outside of the United States. Just deleted your TikTok account. Oh. Be sure to like the live feed at the top. Talking to me? 24 likes. Come on, man. Somebody liked the live. I'll be deleting mine. Shoe kissed the ring. Well, that's understandable. I'm not going to delete my TikTok. I have far too many followers, and that's where I built everything at. But I'm definitely, as you can see right now, TikTok just came back on, and I'm live on YouTube. And that's, I have no faith that it will stay on, and I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes with the negotiations. I know it's dirty and it feels dirty, so I'm definitely going to be focusing a lot more on YouTube as far as content, and this is where my podcast will be when that all starts. But I get it if you want to delete TikTok. I understand, yeah. I don't know why we would think Shu is a Democrat. I have no idea what Shu is, and uh, I think probably most importantly, he's a capitalist, and it wouldn't matter if he would be a Democrat or a Republican. He's going to do whatever he has to do to keep that app running. Like, I don't know anything about his politics. I don't care. I don't think it matters. I don't think his politics matters. I think he would be doing the same thing no matter what his politics were. So he's got, thousands and thousands of employees to think about. And you know, um, is he supposed to just let all of that go away because, you know, people don't like Donald Trump, or whether he liked him or not? Like, he has responsibilities that are much larger than, the daily BS with politics. He has more to think about than that. And so, it won't be saved beyond 90 days. I mean, I can't argue with that. I can't. I'm expecting it to last 90 days myself, but I also don't know what's going to happen. But do you think these platforms will be used to identify dissent and squash speech? I mean, you could make the argument that what has happened over the last 18 hours or whatever was sort of a test for that, couldn't you? I mean, I don't know the answer to your question, but since you said will be used, I'll say I don't know. If you would have said could be used, I would say yes, absolutely could be used. I don't know if they will be used. And that may be happening already, and I'm just too naive to see it. So who knows? Good afternoon, Charles. Jill, you have a crescent wrench. What are you going to do with that crescent wrench? Hey, Joan. Thank you for coming to my YouTube live, which is not on TikTok. Any word on when we can go live again? I didn't know you couldn't. I didn't know people couldn't. So I don't know. I I can't answer any questions about what will happen with TikTok. I don't think anybody can. If they say they can, they're just guessing. So I haven't heard anything. Um, how come nobody is talking about his tweet against Seth Meyers and Comcast? I haven't heard anything about that. Mimi says you can't see lives yet. Yeah, when I got on there, I basically got on there long enough to send my messages to Jill so we could keep our streak alive and post a video, and then I got off of there. Like, I didn't stay on there very long. So someone told me I should have my glasses on outside of this cap instead of inside. I never used it. You can live without it. Spend some time outside and touch grass. That's my advice. Yeah, I spend a lot of hours outside every day, probably more than most people. But you're right. I can certainly live without it. I'm not arguing with that. I'm just. Jones says we don't have grass in Vegas. That's true. I know that's true because I've been there. A lot of pavement, concrete, a lot of rocks, a lot of sand. Not much grass. Not much grass in Vegas. What looks dumb, Jill? Inside or out? I need your advice. The glass is on the inside. Okay. See? In a lot of ways, I'm like a kid. Like, people have to tell me how to do a lot of things, honestly. Like, when are you, when are you launching your presidential campaign? A president of what? Like, the local oil and gas association? I'm not launching a presidential campaign. That's, fuck that. I'm not even running for local office. No, Jill is not Mrs. Global. No. Thank you. That's okay. Yeah, she's more like Mrs. Global's sister-in-law. Uh, if Project 25 is fully implemented, do you feel Trump will push for unlimited term length as president? Well, I mean, I don't know. He could, but let's be honest. How much longer does he have to live? I mean, yes, I'm making light of that. I mean, he could. Who knows? I think you have to have faith in the checks and balances of our government. You know, you have to. So I don't think the Republican Party would ever let that fly. So, how large of an issue are orphan wells? That's a great question. So, if you don't know what an orphan well is, it's a well, an oil or gas well that's been orphaned, basically left behind. Companies go bankrupt. Other companies don't step in and acquire assets through a process. So there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands. Actually, I think there's a couple of million orphaned wells around the country, and these are wells that are just sitting idle that need to be plugged and abandoned. It's absolutely a problem. And one of the things that the Biden administration did do was funnel a lot of money to states to start cleaning up orphan wells. They're a big, a fairly substantial emitter of carbon dioxide because a lot of them leak. Some of them leak gas, some of them leak wellbore fluids, which can be, produced water or oil on or onto the surface or subsurface. So yeah, they're a huge problem that needs to be addressed. And it would take us probably, even with advanced large efforts, it would probably take us at least a couple of decades of work to locate and properly plug and clean up all the orphaned wells in the United States. It's a pretty big deal for sure. Yeah. Are orphan wells not able to be reworked? Actually, a lot of them are able to be reworked. I've reworked many. The wells that I've reworked weren't really classified as orphaned wells, but they were wells that were about to be orphaned that I took and turned them into producers again. So, yeah, you need good logs, you need good data, you need to know what you're getting into. But yeah, orphan wells can absolutely have the potential to be, producing wells again. And so, why is Phillips investing so much in the midstream and NGLs? Because natural gas demand in the United States is about to, the rate of growth of natural gas demand in the United States is climbing quickly, and historically we've seen roughly somewhere between a 1 and 2% growth in natural gas demand annually. That's about to jump to about 5%, and that may not sound like a lot, but that is massive. That is massive natural gas demand, and I'm talking about globally, right? So anybody with any sense should be investing in all of the things that either produce the gas or get the gas from where it's produced to where it's going. And the midstream companies are really the companies that are going to make a fortune with increased natural gas demand because, demand isn't a guarantee of high prices. But the thing about midstream operations in the oil and gas industry is those guys get paid no matter what the price is. They get paid no matter what the price is. So my company we're heavily weighted in natural gas. About 73%, I think, of our production is natural gas. 25% is oil, and then we have NGLs. So my company largely survives on, what the current price of natural gas is. The midstream companies, it doesn't matter. They charge the same amount. They still get the same rate, whether whether gas is $2 or $4, they're still getting the same rate. And so a lot of companies are investing heavily in the midstream space because that's, you know, it's a little longer return on investment, but it's also like guaranteed money. It's literally guaranteed money. You're the only company there that has the infrastructure. You own the whole business front to back. Like, so that's why a lot of midstream companies are doing that, because there's going to be a lot of gas being moved around the country, significantly more than there is now. And especially with all the new LNG terminals that are going to be built. And so, yeah, it's just good business for them. Why the growth in natural gas is reduction of coal use, coal still being replaced with natural gas. Artificial intelligence and data centers are popping up like crazy. The electrification of everything is going to require natural gas because renewables can't handle the load. And even if you have renewables in place, you have to have natural gas there as a backup. There's a lot of countries around the world, you know, there's almost 1 billion people on this planet that don't have access to electricity. A lot of those people live in very poor countries. They can't afford, you know, to bring in renewable energy. There's going to be a lot of gas, but a lot of data centers, you know, one data center uses as much electricity as 80, 90,000 homes. Those things are popping up like crazy. So the demand for natural gas is going to go through the roof. Russia's pretty much getting cut off around the world for natural gas supplies. Someone's got to replace that. That's largely going to be the United States. Also Australia. Australia has a lot of natural gas. So that's why the demand growth. There's multiple reasons, but a lot of it is artificial intelligence, data centers, electrification of the country, and Russia getting largely cut off from supplying a lot of people with gas. So I invested in Cheniere LNG back in August. It's up 25% already. Yeah, and it's going to continue to go up. It's going to continue to go up. So. Isn't natural gas on top of an oil well? So it depends. You know, you have you have wells that produce, you call it a dry gas well. It produces a very dry natural gas, and that's about all it produces. You have wells that have wet gas. They produce natural gas, they produce condensates. You typically get a lot of more NGLs out of that natural gas. And then you have oil wells that produce associated natural gas. You know, so natural gas comes from a lot of places, but you know, if you have an oil well and you just shut it in, yes, the natural gas will migrate to the top and sit there. But when it's producing, no, it's not just sitting at the top of the well. It's actually entrained into the oil itself, and it breaks out as it travels through the wellbore and through the production facility. So. What's a good company to invest in? I don't really give investment advice, and I'm really not the person you should be asking for investment advice, and that's just me being completely honest. Even if I had some companies in mind, I probably wouldn't give you that advice. It would be irresponsible of me to tell you where to put your money. If you haven't already invested in natural gas, I wouldn't say it's too late, but you're a little late to the party. Should have done that a year ago, but it may not be too late. But you know, the uh, the top end is now limited. I'll put it to you that way, because The gas that's been already purchased and in the tanks at a gas station not stay the same price till it's been all used up. If the barrel goes up, that gas in the gas station reservoir sells high. That also applies for when gas prices go down. So the gas in the tank, the prices can go down for the gas that's already in the tank too. Yeah, that goes both ways. Is there a future in LNG or is it too dangerous to put out to public? Yeah, we're not going to be putting that out to the public. It's extremely dangerous. So, you know, it's the best way to describe it. We'll just use units. So 1 unit of LNG, 1 unit of liquefied natural gas, which is condensed, when that's converted back to natural gas, increases 600-fold in volume. So how do you describe that? If you had a rail car that was full of LNG, once that LNG was converted back to natural gas and not liquefied natural gas, you would need 600 rail cars to transport it. So that's how much it expands from its liquid state to its gaseous state. I can't imagine a scenario where LNG would ever be available for the public. No. Why is the chat so tiny? I don't know, Jill. You're the moderator. Can you fix it? I'm not a YouTube live. I'm not a seasoned YouTuber that knows how all these lives work. It doesn't look tiny to me though. She's because it's cold. Because it's cold. That's a great answer. Because it's cold. Everything shrinks when it's cold. Do you own an oil and gas business? Yes, I'm a principal partner in an oil and gas upstream oil and gas company. We also have a midstream division, and so yes. Don't we have a huge interest in Ukraine's LNG? Yes. And in addition to that, there's some new discoveries in Ukraine. But a lot of, the amount of natural gas that Ukraine has been way overstated due to this conflict because I think people are trying to say, oh, well, we want their natural gas they do have a fairly significant amount of it, but it's not some huge, massive number. Like it's not some gold mine of natural gas sitting out there waiting for someone to go get. But they do have it. They do have some, and they don't have, they only have a fraction of what we have. So, it's not some massive discovery that everyone's fighting to go get. They have some, and so I don't really know that their natural gas is a huge driver of anything that's going on over there. Russia has a ton more natural gas. I think it's more about geographic location and how that works strategically. That's a huge deal, more than the gas is. So, and it's also about obviously, potentially a NATO nation being right there, butted up to Russia. That's a huge thing there too. So, I don't think Ukraine's natural gas is a big driver of what's happening over there. TikTok is back with the welcome back message thanking President Trump. Yes, I saw that. I saw that. Why is there such a large increase in liquefied natural gas development in the Gulf area? Because the price of natural gas overseas is much greater than it is here. So, there's not a ton of natural gas in a lot of the countries we send LNG to, and they rely heavily on imports. They don't produce very much at all. They rely heavily on imports. They can't carry much inventory. So, natural gas in the United States might be $3 or $4, and in Europe it might be 12. And so people that produce natural gas were like, shit, natural gas is $12 in Europe. How do we get it over there, right? So LNG it is. And it's a huge, huge market in the future. And they pay a premium for it because they don't have it. So it's a big business, and that's why it's popping up everywhere. And strategically for the United States, being, the largest provider of natural gas to the world, is a huge deal to our status as the world superpower. It's another notch in our belt and provides us with a lot of, opportunities as well. So that's why. And it's not just the Gulf Coast, it's going to be the East Coast as well, that we're going to see a lot of LNG. I work in the electric power industry and coal. Would moving to the natural gas side make the most sense, or should I aim for something else? Interested in your perspective. That depends on a lot of things that are personal to you that I don't know about. If you're in the coal industry and you're very early in your career, I would say, maybe think about shifting towards, either natural gas or renewables, either one. It just depends on kind of where you are in life, I think. And so that makes that a very difficult question to answer. I do know over the next 4 years with Trump in office, coal isn't going anywhere. But we have seen coal decline precipitously in this country. So I understand the point of your question, but I would focus more on the right company and focus less on what they sell. Because if you go to work for the right company, it doesn't matter what they sell. If you end up in the right place, they'll innovate, they'll adapt, they'll survive, they'll take care of you. And so I understand what you're asking, but I personally would focus more, if you're looking for a move, I would focus more on looking for the right company and focus less on what they do, and focus more on what their plans are for the future. That's what I would focus more on. I don't know how that got up there. Your ma told you about me? Okay, cool. It feels so dirty using TikTok now. Oh man. Well, it kind of does. It kind of does. What are your thoughts on refineries? Does the U.S. need more, or is there plenty? Um, I think a realistic answer to that, and I don't know if y'all can see this banner that's popped up there. We can simply expand the existing refineries we have and do just fine. Fuel consumption in the United States over the next few years is going to plateau and begin to decline. I don't expect to see, unless it's replacing something old and outdated that they just can't upgrade, I don't see really new refineries being built, unless, maybe one burns to the ground or, I mean, if they are built, it's not to add capacity. We do much better adding capacity to existing refineries than we do building new ones. It's quicker. The permitting process is quicker. The construction's quicker. You're adding on to an existing operation. And the roughly 500,000 barrels of refining capacity that we've regained under the Biden administration that we lost under COVID, that's all been regained through refinery expansion and not adding more refineries. So I don't really know that we need more refineries as much as we just need to be able to expand existing ones. But looking forward as to when, you know, and the thing I don't really get with, people that are in the refining business, they keep looking forward to, demand plateauing in the United States, starting to fall. We just export a ton of it anyway. They're going to send it somewhere. If we don't use it here, they're going to sell it somewhere. So that just shows you how the low margins in the refining industry, how difficult it is to get into the business, how long it takes to get a return on investment. It's just not a great business to be in. So, but if you have something that's working really well and expanding on that just works better than adding new refineries. And we have a ton of capacity that we can expand with existing facilities that will more than meet our needs. Our problem has largely shifted from refining capacity to how much we're exporting. We got back 500,000 barrels a day of the million we lost, and it didn't largely impact prices. And the reason it didn't largely impact prices was because we just exported more. And right now we're exporting more refined fuels than we have ever. So the exports is really becoming the driver over refining capacity. A couple of years ago, it was refining capacity. That's shifting towards exports for sure. What am I doing? I'm messing around. I'm I'm fiddling. I'm looking at stuff because this is unfamiliar to me. Don't break this. What are my thoughts on Landman? Ah, man, I get asked that all the time. Okay, so it's fake, right? Landman is fake. None of that stuff actually happens. And they can't even get the stuff that does happen right. And, you know, a Landman doesn't do what Billy Bob Thornton does. There's not, and I've said this before, there's not really anyone in the industry that does what Billy Bob Thornton does as a job. But if anyone did do that, like if there was anybody that did do that, I would be the closest thing to it. And anyone who runs a smaller oil company like I do. But no, I mean, it's a decent show, but it's a TV show, you know, it's what it is. And I'm not going to break this. I don't think. No, that's the thing. I don't lead a very dramatic life. And that's why I say it's a TV show. I actually, it was a few years ago, we got approached by Discovery Channel for a possible reality show. And when they saw how boring what we do actually is, they were like, we can't make a show out of this. And I was like, yeah, I know you can't. So that thing fizzled out pretty quickly. No, I do not handle cartels. So what Billy Bob Thornton does outside of all of that dumb shit that's related to the show, like drug cartels and like, yeah, what what a normal day to day for someone who does what Billy Bob Thornton does in that show. But yeah, no, it's not a dramatic life. I can promise you that. All right, everyone, I'm going to shut this live down and move on to other things I got to do today. I appreciate everyone for coming in here. I did 2 YouTube lives today. I think they went pretty well. I need to figure out, do they have multi-guest on here, Jill? Can you find that out? Do they have multi-guest where I can go live with another person? I have no idea. Anyway, thanks everyone for coming and spending a little bit of time with me and watching. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.